Okay, welcome everybody to Little's Lab. My name is Kim. I am a community learning specialist with Do Space. And you are, like I said, joining us for Little's Lab this morning. So thank you so much. If you are new to Little's Lab, we have a Little's Lab every Tuesday and Saturday morning. And every month we have a different theme, and we have a really fun theme this month. Our theme is exploring our world. So that's a pretty big thing to do, right? We have a really large world to explore, and that can mean a lot of different things. That could mean being able to travel all over the world, and learning about different countries and learning about different cultures. Or maybe it's as simple as trying a new dish, a new type of food. Maybe it's as even more simple as walking outside your door and learning about maybe what tree is growing in our backyard, or what are those flowers that we always pass by when we go on our walk in our neighborhood, or what kind of animal is that or bird we see when we go to the park. And so there are a lot of ways to explore your world. And so how do you explore your world? I want to know how you explore your world. You can let us know in the chat. You can always have your grown-up help you out. Or maybe you can just talk to the people that you're with. How do you explore your world? I like to go on walks. I love going on walks. They're so nice to go on walks, and especially this time of year when the flowers are growing and I can see and look at all the different flowers. And sometimes if they're close enough to the sidewalk, I might even bend over and smell a few because they're just so beautiful. We have a friend that says they like to eat food. Yes, like I said, trying new foods is a great way to explore your world because, you're learning about the things that grow on our world, right? Different, or grow in our world, different fruits and vegetables, different, meats that we might eat. And you might be trying something completely different that you might never have thought you've tried before that is, really popular in a different country. So yeah, absolutely. Exploring your world, exploring new toys and things like that. That's a way just to kind of exploring your, how to do things with your own body. So we had somebody said, our friend Byron said that they like to play with Play-Doh. They explored with Play-Doh, maybe making shapes, learning that way. That's a great way. We have a friend that said they went to the creek and they were finding different things that they could explore. And sometimes it means going off trail and doing things differently. Absolutely. Sometimes you might think, well, what's down there? And it could be, a little bit different, or there might not be a very clear path, but sometimes that's where a lot of learning and exploring can happen. Absolutely. And then we have a friend that sometimes they try different foods at their schools or at home. Yep, absolutely. I love trying new foods. Yes, those are all great answers. So yeah, and let us know if you think of something else that you like to explore your world, how you explore your world. So today we are going to be kind of talking a little bit about plants, specifically a plant that grows in our area of Nebraska in Omaha. I'm going to be reading a story about an oak tree, and I know that's a little bit funny, but though, it's sometimes nice to know what kind of, like I said, what kind of trees do we have in just even our neighborhood or state. And it's fun to kind of know, like, oh, I know what kind of tree that is. And we have a lot of oak trees. So I'm going to be reading a kind of book, and it's going to help us kind of tell some of the differences on how you can identify an oak tree. And then we're going to be playing with an app that shows us how oak trees grow and how mushrooms grow. So we're going to be talking about that as well. We have another friend that says they can find animals, and they like to sometimes find music, learning about different music. Absolutely. That is a great way to learn about your world, because the type of music I listen to might be different than the type of the music that you listen to. That might be different than somebody who lives in Germany or Australia or Japan. There are so many different types of music. So yeah, excellent. Well, friends, we are going to get started with our calendar. And I always like getting started with our calendar because I think it helps, with our days of the week, our numbers, and even our letters. And it's fun to see like what fun things are happening in the month. So I'm going to be sharing with you a website called Starfall. You should be able to see that on our screen. And I'm going to go to kindergarten and pre-K. And I'm going to go over to where it says May in that calendar. So that's where I'm going to start, right? And if you haven't been with us before, you might be thinking, well, where are we going? Well, when we were in the building, we have a really big touchscreen monitor, like the monitor you're probably watching me on right now, but it's touchscreen. And I would have our kiddos come up and help us move along through this website. But since we can't do that and I'm not in Do Space, I want you to pretend and help me out. Can you guys do that? So for example, you should see a big white triangle in the middle of your screen. And I want you to go ahead and just touch that big red triangle in your white triangle in your screen. And the screen should change. So I'm going to have you guys kind of help me do that throughout our calendar time. So you should see on your screen a word and then some numbers. And that word is the month we are in right now. And who knows what our month is, or actually, let's start with the letter. What is the very first letter of our month? What's that very first letter? What does our month start with? And it makes that sound like you ate something yummy. What is that? It is our letter M. That is right. That is right. Our letter M. And so that makes the sound. And who knows what our month is called? Does anybody know what our month is called that starts with our letter M? Who knows what our month is called that starts with our M? Is it our month of May? That is right, our month of May. And so we are in the month of May. And then those numbers are the year that we're in. So we are in the year 2020, 2020. Perfect. Okay, you guys should see a big or a green arrow in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Can you guys go ahead and touch that big green arrow? Go ahead and touch that green arrow for me. And you should see now our calendar of May. And right under where it says May 2020, there are 7 words, and those are our days of the week. And those are so good to know because we repeat our 7 days of the week every week through every month all year round. So it is good to know what day of the week it is. And so let's say our days of the week all together. I'm going to say them, you say them with me or with who you are with. So let's start with Sunday. So there's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Perfect. And who knows what today's day of the week is? It comes after Monday and before Wednesday. And it starts with our letter T. Does anybody know what our day of the week is today? It's Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. So that is our day of the week today. And that is the one that is all goldy and a hand is pointing to it. Can you guys go ahead and touch that Tuesday with me? Go ahead and touch that Tuesday with me. Perfect. So today is Tuesday. That's our day of the week. Our month is called May. It starts with our letter M. And then our date today is that number. And it's kind of a big number, right? Some of you might know that number. Some of you might still be learning it. And our teens, working on our teen numbers. And so, yeah, does anybody know what our number is called? Say it with you know what that number is. Maybe tell your grown-up that you're with or somebody you're with. And our number is made up of 2 numbers, right? And our first number is our number 1. And our second number is our number, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I got that. And so when a 1 is in front of a 9, that is 19. So today is the 19th day of May. So yeah, so go ahead and touch that green arrow one more time. Can you guys touch that green arrow again? Perfect. So you should see now that our Tuesday and our 19 are missing on our calendar. We need to put them back where they belong. So let's start with our Tuesday. Can you help me touch and drag our Tuesday where it needs to go in our days of the week? Nice. Can we do the same for our 19 or our 19th day of May? Let's do that for our 19th day of May. Great job. Nice work. Okay, one more time. Last time, let's touch that green arrow. Perfect. Okay, so for our month of May, you should see some tiny little pictures or icons on some of our dates throughout our month of May. So we're going to talk about some of those. So for example, our first one is on Tuesday, May 5th. There we go, May 5th, and our 5th of May. And it has two kind of celebrations going on that day. Our first, one of them is called Teachers' Day. And so that was a day to celebrate our teachers, the people that help us learn, which is so important. Our teachers are such good, caring people, and they help us learn, and we need to give them so much credit because sometimes it's hard to teach a lot of kiddos, right? And so it's a good thing to always appreciate our teachers. So that's that's what was going on Tuesday, May 5th. It was a Teachers' Day to appreciate our teachers. And then it was also another day. So you should see like a hat. It's called a sombrero. And that is because our other day is kind of holiday or festival day is called Cinco de Mayo. And Cinco de Mayo means 5th of May in Spanish. So cinco means 5. So if we were to count in Spanish, if you got to the number 5, it would be cinco. And then Mayo is May in Spanish. So Cinco de Mayo translates to 5th of May. And so, yeah, that is a holiday that is celebrated in a region of Mexico called the Pueblo region. And then we have, and then we celebrate it here in the United States too, because we have a large Mexican and Mexican-American community here in the United States. So yeah, it gets celebrated both in Mexico and here in the United States. Nice. And then we had a really special day on Sunday, May 10th, and that was Mother's Day. And so that's when we celebrated all the important women in our life, all those important ladies, our moms, our grandmas, maybe aunts, caregivers that take care of us, just really important people, moms and ladies that take care and that are in our lives. So we did that on Sunday, May 10th. And then yesterday, you should see a crown on our date yesterday on the 18th, on Monday, May 18th. And that is because it is a day called Victoria Day. And it is celebrated not here in the United States, it's celebrated in the country of Canada, which is straight north of us. The country of Canada is straight north of the United States. And I finally looked it up, and it is a day that celebrates Queen Victoria, who was the Queen of England back in the 1800s. And so at one point, she was also the Queen of Canada, or it's kind of like they were kind of related. And so they celebrate that day in Canada. It's called Victoria's Day. But we don't celebrate down here because we never had a queen. Or if we did, it was a long, 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 long time ago. And then next week on Monday, May 25th, 2 and the 5, when the 2 is in front of a 5, it's the 25th, we celebrate Memorial Day. And that's a day that we think about and remember people that were in our lives that are no longer with us, who have passed. And so it's just a good day to remember those people and think about them and tell good stories your grown-up might have that day off, maybe they don't, and it's just a good day to remember people who were in our lives that maybe are no longer with us. So, and I think that's all of our festival or holidays in our month of May. But we need to celebrate birthdays, right? So now I know I have a birthday, and I know you have a birthday. but I'm looking for friends who specifically have birthdays, who have birthdays in the month of May. Because not everybody has a birthday every month, right? I know I don't. And so, does anybody have a birthday in our month of May? And if you don't, that's okay. Maybe it's next month. Maybe it's in August like mine. Anybody have a birthday in the month of May? No birthdays, that's fine. You know what I'm going to do though? I'm going to put a piece of cake on our date today, on the 19th. Because maybe it's not your birthday, but sometimes it's just a good day to have cake, right? Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you guys for helping me out with our calendar. We are going to move on to our story. And so I am actually going to stop sharing that. And our story is what's called a nonfiction book. So a lot of the stories that you probably read with your parents or grandparents or brothers and sisters or daycare or babysitters, things like that, a lot of those books are probably fiction, or they're like made up books. They're imaginary books. A lot of times they might have animals that talk or people that exist in the story but not in real life, and that's called fiction. And then there are books that are called nonfiction, and it's based on like real things and like sometimes about like real people or real places. Not to say that there aren't real places in fictional books, but a lot of times they have real people, and sometimes they're just more about like facts or things that are true. And so our book, we are going to be reading about a nonfiction book called Oak Trees. And the reason, like kind of like what I said earlier, the reason I'm bringing that up because we have lots of oak trees here in Nebraska, and I think it's fun just to help, if you ever go on a walk or go in the park, I bet after reading this book, you will be able to go up to a tree and be like, that's an oak tree. Or maybe it's not. And you would be able to know that it wasn't an oak tree just based off of the things that we'll learn from this book. So I went on a walk the other day and I was able to identify an oak tree or several oak trees just by reading this book to our friends on Saturday. So even I learned a little bit, which was cool. I love learning, and I'm sure you do too. So let's go ahead and read our story. I'm going to start sharing our app called Epic Books. There we go. And our story is called Nature Walk Oak Trees. And so we're going to learn about the different parts of our oak tree and how you can identify it or look at it and know what it is. So let's get started. So we are looking for oak. Oops. There we go. Okay, let's try that one more time. We are looking for oaks. Let's go on a nature walk. Can you find an oak tree? I don't know. If we look at that picture, do we think any of those are oak trees? Let's find out and see. A way to see an oak tree is to look for a leaf. So look at those leaves. So on the left-hand side, there's lots of different leaves, right? Do they all look the same? No, they all look a little bit different, not just in their coloring, but in their shape too. So we're going to look at the shape of our leaves. So a white oak leaf has rounded lobes. So if you look on the right-hand side or the green leaves, that top leaf, look at its lobes or its fingers. I kind of think of them as its fingers of the leaf, and they are rounded. But a red oak leaf has pointed lobes. So you can see how one is pointy and one is rounded. And so even by the leaf, there are different types or species of oak trees, and even their leaves look different. So you would be even not only say, oh, that's an oak tree, but you would be able to say that's a white oak tree or a red oak tree just by looking at the leaves. You can also look for a trunk. The oak bark is gray and rough. So if you look and it's gray and rough like this picture, it might be an oak tree. Because sometimes the bark of trees are smooth, or maybe it's different colors and it's not gray, and sometimes it's not rough. So that's another way you can see if it's an oak tree, by looking at the trunk. Ooh, you can also look for squirrels. Why do you think you would look for squirrels? Because probably squirrels, they probably live in a lot of trees, right? Or go to a lot of trees. But why do you think they would specifically maybe go to an oak tree? But maybe there's some yummy food that the oak tree grows that the squirrel would like. We'll talk about that in just a second. And you might look for woodpeckers. Woodpeckers nest in oak trees. And so I know that whenever I've gone on walks, I can sometimes hear woodpeckers. And so now I'm thinking, I wonder if they're pecking in an oak tree. Because probably if you can see that branch that the woodpecker is on, you can see that there's lots of crags and openings, and little buggies can go in there. And that woodpecker can, peck through that bark and eat those little buggies for food. Look for acorns. So acorns are the seeds of our oak trees. And I bet our squirrels like to live in oak trees because of these seeds or acorns. They probably eat them. And so in the summer, the acorns are green, and in fall, they turn brown, and they'll fall off onto the ground, and that helps new oak trees grow. You can look for a young oak tree because they don't have acorns yet. So you know it's young if you are in the summer or fall and you don't see any acorns. And only old oak trees grow acorns. They start when they are 50 years old. Can you believe that? Oak trees do not start making acorns or seeds until they are 50 years old. That is so old. That is hard to believe, but that's when they're ready to make seeds. And that's when they are able to fall and make new oak trees. And you can also look for the flowers in spring. So they are called catkins, and they help pollen to grow, or they make pollen to help acorns grow. So right now, because what season are we in right now? We're in 4 seasons, right? There are 4 seasons, and right now we are in the season of spring. So right now you might see these little catkins growing on oak trees, these pretty little flowers that are pink, and they produce pollen and they help make acorns. So maybe look out for the catkins. So maybe have you seen an oak tree before? Maybe you've seen one and you didn't even know it's an oak tree. And so right now you have a lot of the tools that you might need, or a lot of the ways to help identify an oak tree. So remember, there's the trunk of the tree, that's the main part or the main stem, and then we have our branches, and we have our leaves, and remember the lobes, or like the fingers, and they could be rounded for a white oak or pointy for a red oak. And then the seeds are the acorns. Perfect. So maybe this week, this is my challenge for you. This week, go out for a walk, or go maybe on a walk in the park or your neighborhood. See if you can find any oak trees. And maybe you can see and identify them by their leaves, or the catkins, or the bark, and know that that is an oak tree. Perfect. Well, that is the end of my story, friends. So we are going to move on, and we are going to be playing with an app. This app is called Tiny Bop. It is called Tiny Bop Plant. And it is a really fun, interactive app that kind of shows us how different plants grow. And right now, this one we are in, I'm going to choose it. Maybe. Usually it says spring. So we are in this area, this is a season of spring that we're seeing on our app, just like we're in. And then this is very similar to the kind of environment that we live in here in Nebraska, where there might be meadows with flowers and lots of trees, but the trees are just kind of starting to grow their leaves, right? So there's a little bit more. This might be early spring, but you might be able to see a little white bar on the left-hand side. So if I move that, you can even see the ground underneath and see what it looks like underneath some of our trees, like that big tree in the front. You can see all the roots and maybe even some tunnels that maybe an animal is living. I don't know. And let's see. There are some things that we can learn about. If you see those circles, I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick the circle that's hovering right over that tree right in the middle. And this is going to help us learn about a white oak tree, which we just talked about, right? So we're going to see how our oak trees grow. So if I touch the branch, you can see that there are little flowers. Do you remember what those flowers are called? What are those flowers called? Do you remember? They're called catkins. Catkins, and those are the flowers and the kind of little spindly flowers that make the pollen and help our acorns grow. Let's see if we can make some pollen and make an acorn grow. I'm just gonna touch my screen and I'm gonna brush some pollen onto that little flower below. And sure enough, an acorn grew. And do you remember what season it is when it's green? In the summer, it's green, and in the fall, it is brown. So I bet this acorn is ready to fall. Let's see. If I touch it a little bit, I'm touching it and I'm making it move, and boom, that acorn is falling. And it's gonna, if I just give it a touch, it's gonna get into the ground and it's gonna start to grow. So now we have a young oak tree. Will this oak tree produce acorns? No, it won't, because it's probably too young. Ooh, but it's growing. Oh my goodness, that acorn's going crazy. I'm gonna bring that back to the ground. I don't know. What about our acorn tree that's a little bit bigger? Now, do we think it might be big enough to produce any acorns? It might. Oh, our one on the left grew really big. And so when our when our oak tree produces a lot of acorns and they fall and they grow, this is how forests are made. So you might think, like right now, maybe you've been to what's called the Fontanelle Forest, and it has lots of different trees, right? And this is how all of those trees came to be, is that their seeds fell and they grew and made a forest. Now, not just oak trees live in forests. There's all sorts of different trees, right? But you will now know how to identify an oak tree. Oh, I thought one of our smaller ones produced an acorn. I don't think it did. I think it's still our bigger one. I'm gonna see if maybe we can make one of our smaller trees a big guy. I think they're all just gonna stay small. Whoa, that one grew pretty big, didn't it? Nice. So this is just kind of a fun way to see how seeds are made and how when they're planted, when they fall to the ground, this is how a forest is made. Perfect. Okay, friends, I'm going to show you one more part of their app. And I'm going to show you the circle on the very far right over some, it looks kind of like over some flowers, but it's actually, we are going to talk about mushrooms. You might have seen mushrooms on walks or different places. And mushrooms, they are a little different than plants. They're not quite, they're not plants at all. They're called fungi, or one mushroom is called a fungus, and lots of mushrooms are called fungi. And they don't necessarily reproduce with seeds. They have little things called spores, or they might reproduce with these little tendrils. Do you see underneath in our ground all these white little tendrils? They're kind of like roots, but they're actually kind of part of the fungi itself. So I'm going to start all our leaves that maybe fell last fall. They are starting to decompose, or they're dead. And the cool thing about fungi is they love dead plants. If we didn't have fungi, none of those leaves that fall in the fall, they would just pile up and pile up and pile up, and we would be just in a sea of leaves. But our fungi, they help break down those leaves, and they use them for nutrients. So just like how I get food, like from food, you get nutrients from food that you eat and drink, water and drinks and things like that. Our fungus is getting its food from these dead leaves. And then with a little bit of water, I'm going to move over my little rain cloud. With that nutrients from the dead leaves, a new mushroom popped up. I'm going to have it rain a little bit more. And all of these little white guys are just breaking down all of those leaves. And then when it rains, they kind of get the water, they absorb the water, and then they pop out from under the ground. So even though there's not necessarily seeds, they're coming from those little tiny white tendrils that are underneath. Now, here's something important to know about mushrooms. You can eat some mushrooms, right? There are some mushrooms you can eat. Like the ones from the grocery store, those are good mushrooms to eat. But sometimes there are mushrooms that you're not supposed to eat at all. There are poisonous mushrooms. So if you're ever outside and you see mushrooms, do not eat it. Only if you were ever told that's a mushroom you can eat. Are you able to eat it? But otherwise, do not eat any mushrooms you see outside. Because most likely, they're icky. And they might make you really sick. But if your mom and dad make a yummy, yummy dinner that has mushrooms, you can eat those. So yeah, so that is how, and these type of mushrooms are called tawny milkcap mushrooms. And they also grow here, sometimes in parts of Nebraska or in our country. So yeah. Well, friends, we are just about out of time. So I'm going to go back to me. Perfect. And say thank you so much for joining us today for Little's Lab. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, I'm going to be showing you a really cool app that takes pictures of plants, and then it helps us identify them, or it helps us tell us what kind of plants they are, and it works for trees or bushes or flowers or even vegetables or fruits. So we are going to be talking about that next week and kind of doing some more plant identification. So great. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining me for Little's Lab today. Go out there, try and see if you can find and identify an oak tree. That's my challenge for you this week. Go out and see if you can find an oak tree by looking at its leaves or its bark, or see if you can find those catkins that are hanging from its branches. Well, you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.